It's time for Reason.
Because now we're introducing the one thing that we have that can actually change the mentality of the people that we're trying to influence, and that is capitalism. We can change their diplomacy. We can change their leaders. We can overthrow the dictators. We can try and quote-unquote free the people, but unless the people know what to do with that freedom, they're lost. The one way that we can change things is introduce capitalism.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. What's going on? Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday, and today I think that we should celebrate as such as a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. I mean, what do you say? Come on. I thought that Donald Trump was a terrible, horrible human being that did not care and that would rather tweet about horrible things. No, wait, I didn't think that Donald Trump would actually be able to pull off a summit where by the end of the day, dictative leader Kim Jong-un says that he wants to completely denuclearize North Korea. No, it just can't be, can it? It just can't be. The progressives are losing their minds. Have you heard some of the comments that have been made by not only the media, but some of the constituents, quote unquote, some of the progressives on social media, on some of the call-in shows, on some of these other outlets? They are losing their minds. I can't believe that Donald Trump's actually focusing on North Korea. This is completely absurd. We have people that are suffering and poor here in the country, and instead of actually taking care of them through universal socialized programs, we are trying to denuclearize North Korea and, and some kind of conflict to where they may try and, build missiles and stuff to blow us up. And I can't believe that he's focusing on something like that. It is completely absurd. I can't believe that he would actually sit down and meet with a dictator. And oh my gosh, he gets along with dictators better than anybody else. He must be a dictator himself. Can you possibly imagine a world where we have stupid, ignorant, naive, completely oblivious people who are so angry at the world that they refuse to acknowledge that something good is happening for the world? Maybe it's false. Maybe it's going to be short-lived. I don't know. But guess what? The fact that the president of the United States has sat down with the president or the dictator, the leader of North Korea, and they're talking about denuclearization, and the leader of that dictatorial, that fascist nation is saying, I'm going to denuclearize. I want to work closer with you. I want to be on the national stage. I want to bring capitalism into my country. The fact that this is happening is groundbreaking. This is earth-shattering. This is the biggest news, and it's really funny how Republicans and conservatives are the ones that actually make this happen. When was the last time that something like this happened? Was it Barack Obama? Cracks me up just thinking about that. Was it George W. Bush? Was it Bill Clinton? Was it George H.W. Bush? No, you got to go back to Ronald Reagan. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Where he went and he said, this is our demands. This is what's going to happen. You will collapse. You will reform. And this is what's going to happen. That's just it. End of story, period. And guess what? It did. What's happening now? The most conservative president since Ronald Reagan, President Donald J. Trump, going in. This is what's going to happen. You will denuclearize. You will stop being a little jerk. You will stop being a little rocket man. We will work with you a little bit more if you start actually cooperating a bit. You will be friends with South Korea. You will actually get on the national stage and actually act appropriately, or else you're going to be completely destroyed. Guess what? Hey! Let's have a summit. Okay, yeah, you know what? I really appreciate it. This is fantastic. We requested this, and this is going to be great. This has been tried before. Barack Obama said that he wanted to try it, and it didn't work. So many people have wanted to try to, quote unquote, end this conflict. And we had talked about this a little bit yesterday, and some of the comments were, well, you know what? We really technically haven't had a conflict in a while because we haven't had an actual war or an outbreak or anything. And that's true. But we're signing the peace treaty. We're signing the denuclearization. They're signing the pact. This is groundbreaking. This is going down in the history books of what the children from 30, 40, 50 years from now are going to be taught in their history books about what happened when North Korea finally, one of the evils in the world, were finally held accountable for what's going on. I can't believe that he's meeting with someone about human, and they didn't even mention stuff about human rights. Yes, they did. It's evolution. It's the growing. It's the evolving. It's the betterment of. It's like anything else that we've talked about. Look, I've been watching a show that I think is relatively appropriate and kind of in line parallels to a lot of what's happening today. I don't know if you watch the show. It's kind of a dorky show, and I don't really care what you think of me about it. We call it the Princess Show, but it's Once Upon a Time from ABC, and I think it's kind of fascinating. We've been watching it on Netflix about all of the fantasy characters, about all of the Disney characters, about all the story times, anything from Snow White and Prince Charming to Rumpelstiltskin to Peter Pan to all of these different stories. And one story in particular about Snow White, Prince Charming, and the evil witch, if you remember. And the evil witch was the terrible person that was trying to curse Snow White. Well, in this story, and Once Upon a Time, as they evolve, the evil witch ends up becoming good because she finds something that she actually cares about. And as she's tried to kill Snow White over and over and over and over again, she finally begins to get a heart. She finally begins to find a family, and she finally finds something that she cares about again, and she turns good. And she goes from dark powers and dark magic to light magic and light powers. And she does, and it's the evolution of this because of what she had gone through before and the fact that someone gave her that second chance, and they continuously tried to support her in that process. That's kind of what's happening here. Now, do we trust Kim Jong-un? Of course we don't right now. And I don't think that Mike Pompeo will fully ever trust Kim Jong-un. And I don't think that President Donald Trump will ever trust Kim Jong-un fully. And I don't think Nikki Haley will ever trust Kim Jong-un wholly. But what did Ronald Reagan used to say? Trust but verify. We begin to trust. We give them that opportunity. We give them that chance. We give them an inch. See if they try and take a mile. And if they do take that mile, then we obliterate them wholly. And while we have them on the national stage, how can it be bad for the world? How can it be bad for society to say, you know what, now you're in conversation with us because you feel really important right now because you're on the national stage and you're getting the publicity that you actually want? How is that bad, number one? Number two, how is that not an opportunity to start denuclearizing the peninsula? How is it bad to have them on the national stage to start talking about human rights issues and saying, you've been treating people very poorly, we need to change that? Oh, okay. And they go about their business. How is it bad, as we had mentioned yesterday, to infiltrate and be able to expose them to one of the greatest assets of humankind, which is, of course, capitalism? And as we mentioned yesterday, not only are they meeting in Pyongyang, and they had their meeting, but they're also, or not there, but in Pyongyang, they actually announced for North Korea that they're going to be bringing in one of Trump's hotels along with the McDonald's as a sign of good faith. We're introducing capitalism, which, oh, by the way, allows us to infiltrate the people, not the government, not the bureaucrats, not the dictators, not the media or the press, but the people. The people now have products to them that were not available in the past. The people are now going to have opportunity to create more products that they were not able to in the past. And when you introduce that, no matter how much you try and actually contain it, capitalism spreads very quickly because it's so successful. And the dictators will collapse. The dictators will fall. China will no longer have its ally of a communist nation right next door to it. Russia will not have another ally that they could potentially turn to when they try and use their Soviet Union-style tactics to try to expand their powers around the globe and around that part of the hemisphere. It's not going to happen any longer because they are on the winning side. They're going to start working with the good guys, the heroes, which is the United States, the capitalist nation. We gained yesterday at that meeting. They gained yesterday at that meeting. And any Democrat, any progressive, anybody that is so bitter about President Donald Trump because they despise him with a passion that much shows what their priorities are. They don't care about the betterment of the world. The ones that advocate for world peace on the other side of the aisle, when we recognize world peace will never actually happen, because as long as there's different ideologies, as long as there's different religions, as long as there's people in power, as long as there's greed, as long as there's corruption, as long as there's, human nature, we will never have world peace. It's just the matter of fact. You can only contain some of the evil in the world as much as you possibly can. But this is a step towards making the world a little bit safer. And if the left side of the aisle does not admit that, then they are truly, honestly, a despicable, horrible, evil person. I've never said something like that before, but if they can't recognize that this is a good step, and maybe it could be false, maybe a month from now, Kim Jong-un can come back and say, yeah, you know what, never mind. I want to start building up my arsenal again. I'm going to threaten the United States with war again. I'm going to build my nuclear power up a little bit more again, and I'm going to do something terrible. And if he does that, then you know what? At least we tried. For the first time ever, we sat down with them, and then you know what? We can destroy them because we are way more powerful than they will ever be. And if he's that mentally unstable as a dictator out there, which wouldn't surprise me, then you know what? No harm, no foul. It was going to happen anyways if that was the case. But maybe, just maybe, as a person of eternal optimism, of someone who actually looks at the bright side of things, of the glass always being half full, or at least having some kind of liquid in it to some degree because it never runs dry, and that's the way that I always look at things. We always have an opportunity. This is our opportunity to make the world a little bit safer. This is an opportunity to start making an ally on that side again, as opposed to helping aid the allies of our enemies. Ideologically, we have an opportunity here. And the people that just criticize because they hate Trump that much, give me a break. 18 minutes past the hour. We got a lot to get to today. Welcome in. 316-721-8255. The Facebook Live feed is up and running today. Like it, share it, leave a comment on there. In about 10 minutes, it's going to be a kind of an early interview, but coming up in about 10 minutes, we are going to have Congressman Ron Estes on the show. We have a lot to talk to him about, both with the election, with the Ron M. Estes and some of the latest on there, plus what's happening in Washington, D.C. I will probably replay the interview at 8:30 today, so that way anybody that missed it, because it's, a little early and maybe some people aren't up and at it yet this morning, we may replay that interview in the 8 o'clock hour, but we will have Congressman Ron Estes as long as the schedule allows. They emailed me yesterday and said, well, he may not be able to make it, and then by about 7, 8 o'clock last night, they said, okay, we think he's going to be able to make it. So if all works out as planned, Congressman Ron Estes will be joining us here in about 10 minutes to talk about what's happening up there. And I may throw in some of the questions about North Korea and what's happening there and get his take on that as well, and what the feel is up in Washington, D.C. So that's coming up here soon. Plus, Brian Fry, Wichita City Council member, he's going to be joining at 7:30 today in about an hour from now as well. Other than that, it's open lines to you. We got a lot to cover today. Haysville. Utility rates may be going up. We'll talk on that, and I may have to rely on you and some of the listeners listening down in the Haysville area on your thoughts there, and we'll touch on that story. Let's see, there's a gun story as well. Credit companies that provide, like credit cards and stuff, actually stopped all purchases of any of their consumers who had a credit card of purchasing anything related to a firearm. Even if it was a T-shirt or a mug that was in a gun store, they stopped the purchase of, and gun stores actually had to go and track down a lot of the customers and said, wait a second, your payment was stopped when you bought your gun or you bought your T-shirt or your mug. We need payment. Even training courses, anything related to a firearm, those payments were ceased and frozen because the credit company did not want to advocate for the support of a purchase of a firearm. So we have that story that we'll talk about later as well. So there's a lot of stuff to get to. And then, of course, we'll talk about more about the meeting and the summit with Kim Jong-un in North Korea that happened yesterday and what's coming up today with some of the primaries. Would this affect some of the primaries happening today in 5 other states around the country? And will Republicans benefit from this because, I don't know, we've done something historic that the Democrats were never able to do. And because of that, they're very bitter and very jealous about that. So they just don't like it. So I really don't care. I really don't care what they have to say. So we'll talk about all this and more. Lots to get to today, 21 minutes past the hour. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason on a Tuesday. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Happy Tuesday morning. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today. Don't you know the significance of Kansas being involved in this entire thing? I mean, come on. The man himself, Mike Pompeo, right here from the Wichita area, 4th Congressional District, former representative, congressman from this area, then CIA director, now Secretary of State, is the one that orchestrated all this. He made it happen. Come on. I mean, if that's not cool, I don't know what else is. Yeah, we're the cool kids. It's all right. I get it. You know what I'm starting to realize? I really think that the progressives are really just jealous. Because that was supposed to be them that was getting all the glory.
He took his job. He took it, girl. Took it, sir.
I really think that they're jealous. We were supposed to do that. Barack Obama was supposed to bring the world peace. Barack Obama was supposed to end some of the conflicts. Barack Obama, I mean, come on, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. Do you think Donald Trump will? For the pact signed to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula by working with them to bring them on the national stage, to bring them to the discussion table for human rights violations, to bring them to the discussion about being a little jerk. And is he going to get credit for it? Probably not, because they're jealous. You know what I have to say about it? That's what I got to say. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We are moving in the right direction, and if they don't want to acknowledge it or actually admit it, then you know what? That's their own fault. But the history books will tell of something. Just as we read in the history books, and I read in the history books about Gorbachev tear down this wall and the fall of the Soviet Union because of the communist socialist style mentality versus the capitalist style mentality, and capitalism prevailing as we always do. The same story will be written in the history books about what's happening right now. And if not, then we'll also be told that we at least tried. Unlike any other president that we actually attempted, we brought them to the table. And if they turn their back and do something stupid, then that's their fault and their fault alone. But we attempted. Look, they've been trying to do this for a long time. They've been trying for a long time. I don't know if you were listening to MSNBC yesterday when they were covering this. And, of course, all the angry, bitter individuals were trying to be like, oh, well, why is it so significant? Well, you know, North Korea has been trying for a long time, but it's only this president who actually gave them any type of consideration or attention. And I can't believe why they would actually do such a thing. But they've been trying this for a long time. So wait a second. They've been reaching out for a long time, and no one wanted to listen to the kid in the corner that's kind of the bully, that's kind of a grump, that's kind of a jerk, because who knows what he went through, but he's reaching out. So we reached out to him. Now, if it turns out to be bad, at least we attempted and we tried, unlike anybody else. Funny how all that works, right? When we come back, Congressman Ron Estes is going to be joining us. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Giving the libs one dose of sanity at a time.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's the way we roll right here. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. Good #patriotic Tuesday morning, starting off your day the right way. You can interpret it that however you'd like to do so. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink right here on The Voice of Reason. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Don't forget, we're also going to be giving away Not today, but at least we're going to be registering people to give away on Friday. We'll be announcing the winner for our Ultimate Father's Day giveaway here on KQAM, brought to you by Roden Roofing and Auburn Hills Wine and Spirits. We'll have more details coming up on that in just a little bit. I am excited, though. It's time. We haven't chatted with him in a little bit. It's been way too long, but coming from Washington, D.C., our 4th Congressional District here in the Wichita area, Congressman Ron Estes back on the line with us. Congressman, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Andy?
Hey, doing great. I appreciate you joining so early. It is it's ready to go for a nice Tuesday. And I have to say, we always call it a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday, but this is one of the best Tuesdays we could have because I don't get the left. They can't admit that this is actually a good thing, but the summit yesterday with North Korea and President Trump seemed to go relatively well. What was your thoughts on it?
I think it really did. And there have been so many mistakes made over the years with North Korea and basically us making bad deals, the United States making bad deals with previous presidents. And I have a lot of confidence in President Trump and Secretary of State Pompeo that they're going to work and make sure that the things that the arrangements and the discussions that we have with North Korea help lead towards a more peaceful and verify that they're actually following the deals and the arrangements of the deal.
Sure. Well, and that trust but verify mentality is there, and I wholeheartedly trust President Trump and Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, on not just letting our guard down and letting something bad happen, but giving him the opportunity to do the right thing if he does, and if he doesn't, then we're kind of right there to make that to catch it before anything gets out of hand.
That's right. And it's kind of great to see that they're actually engaging the way they are. Of course, people that want to criticize the president or are complaining that he's actually having the summit, they're the same people that, 3 months ago they were complaining because they thought the summit wasn't going to happen.
He can never win. Well, it's going to be good. We're looking forward to seeing what happens on that front. Let's bring it back home a little bit, though. I got to ask the biggest news, of course, that happened last week, and we've been talking about it, and I trying to do a little digging, understanding what's going on here. But last minute, it seems like you end up getting a primary challenger for the 4th congressional seat, and not only a primary challenger, but it seems like you're running almost against yourself, Congressman Ron Estes, as Ron M. Estes is on the ballot. What's the latest scoop there? And as we go to the voting booth in a few months, what will the ballots officially look like?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the filing deadline was June 1st at noon. They came in and filed. He came in and filed, and I say they because I don't know who's behind this effort, but a guy by the name of Ron M. Estes, who actually I met first time about 10 years ago, so I know who he is, but he's not run for office before. So it's really, we say the M stands for misleading because really it looks like it's an attempt to try to mislead the voters and deceive them on who to vote for and how to vote. And so the Secretary of State had decided, using Kansas law, that they would list me on the ballot as Rep. Ron Estes. Kansas law says you can use a title, and he had been afforded that opportunity to have a title, like doctor or CPA or something on his listing as well. And they protested that. The Democrats protested that. Yesterday, the hearing board basically made it official that I'm going to be listed on the primary ballot as Rep. Ron Estes, and he's going to be listed as Ron M. Estes. And hopefully we can help make sure that doesn't cause confusion for the voters. What's really important, I want to make sure that we talk a lot about all the positive things that are going on, the economy that's booming, the lower taxes, the lower regulation, the rebuilding the military, all the things that we're doing that's the right thing. I don't know if you've talked about it, but in the last 7 months, in the last 49 years, only 7 months have the unemployment rate been below 4%.
Sure.
And 2 of those months have been the last 2 months, April and May. So we're living in unique times right now just because of the the great work that we're doing with the economy, and I'm looking forward to talking about that on the campaign trail.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we've been talking about the elections and the quote unquote blue wave that's supposed to be sweeping the nation. And Congressman, I just don't see it. And especially with the positiveness, as you mentioned, with the unemployment rate being extremely low for everybody. If you want to look at special demographics between the African American community, between the women demographic, between just everybody as a whole, with the economy coming back, with us beginning to repeal certain things. I mean, I don't remember the last time that we've been able to come in as an administration, as a Congress with the same party as the administration, and be able to repeal the previous administration stuff so dedicatedly for the last year. The economy's coming back. Then you see the meetings with North Korea and the positiveness happening there. I mean, if we run positive campaigns across the nation, we're not going to see anything near a blue wave, but it's going to be a red wave with even more seats being picked up, I think, from Republicans.
I don't know if we'll gain seats. We may lose a couple seats, but I do not think the Democrats are going to take the House of Representatives. I think we're going to hold on to the House of Representatives. There'll probably be a net couple seats lost on the Republican side just because of the way districts are, and we've got more members that are retiring than the Democrats do. But there's actually some districts that Democrats are in now that they're retiring in, going to be open seats in the Republican districts. So we're going to pick up some seats in those areas. And so I'm looking forward to, another 2 years with a Republican majority and helping lead to continue to make sure the economy grows. One of the things that is so important about that is you think about what the Democrats' first 3 votes will be if they get the majority in the House. One will be to elect Nancy Pelosi Speaker. The second vote will be to raise taxes again. And the third vote will be to start impeachment proceedings against President Trump. And we're going to work really hard to keep that from happening.
Well, that's I can't see that being a successful campaign tactic to think that that's what people actually want to vote on. So I find it quite comical. But you're right. I mean, and I'm glad to hear that you're going to be running a positive campaign as I kind of anticipated that you would. Do we know what the platform is from Ron M. Estes? Has he made I checked his website a few days ago, and it was just the one page of just the press release of announcing he was going to run, which not only that, but I heard, at least from the Secretary of State's office as well, that he's not going to be allowed to use the campaign slogan, that what he was trying to do, of the real Ron Estes, and that's going to be taken off his campaign. But I don't know his tactic. I don't know his platform. I don't know his campaign. I don't know his slogan. I don't know what he's actually running on. Do you?
I don't either. It's just, I think it is just misleading, trying to deceive the voters. In fact, he and his wife have donated thousands of dollars over the years to the Democratic Party, $5,000 or $6,000 over the last 8 or 10 years to the Democrat Party, Democrat candidates, including my opponent from last year. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I just think if they're going to do that and run as Republicans, they shouldn't be supporting the Democrats that they're running against.
Well, that's true. And you're right. And just to clarify, I'm glad that you brought that up, is that you will be on the ballot as Rep. Ron Estes, while he will be on as Ron M. Estes. So hopefully that will clear some of that up. Talking about some of the positive news, let's shift gears a little bit to some of the debates coming up. I know that we focused on it, and I've been excited about the upcoming appropriations debates on what we can do to start trimming some of the budgets and some of the debates that will be happening up there. Talk about some of the $15 billion budget rescissions and what we could see in some of the money that may be coming out of the federal budget, which would be some really good news. Again, something else to campaign on.
It really will. I'm a big advocate of let's get back into the rescissions process. During every president from Jimmy Carter all the way through Bill Clinton had numerous rescissions during their terms. In fact, literally totaled up hundreds over the years. And basically what a rescission is just it's looking at a current program, looking at a program that doesn't make sense. It was useful years ago maybe, but doesn't make sense now. Or it was a program where we appropriated $100 million, and by the time we finished the work, we only needed $75 million. So there's an extra $25 million sitting over there. And I'm a big advocate of let's go back and get rescissions going. Of course, President Bush and President Obama didn't do any rescissions when they were there. And so what we've seen in the last 2 administrations is the debt just skyrocket because they're not focusing on how do we contain spending. And, $15 billion isn't going to balance the budget, but it's at least a starting point, and it gets things moving forward. it's things we're not using, like an energy program, a little under $5 billion that hasn't been used since 2011. And there was $148 million that was set aside for the avian flu back in 2015 and wasn't ever needed. There was money for the CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program, set aside for that. Well, we've just reauthorized CHIP for 10 years, the longest period of time it's ever been authorized for, and funded that. So we don't need to have that money set aside from the previous authorization. So we've now got to move forward, and we need to do more procedure. I'm looking forward to getting this one passed, and that's starting a whole new process of doing a whole lot of rescissions, a whole lot of spending.
Sure.
When I look at one of our biggest long-term threats for a country is our debt, and we can't continue to spend more money than we bring in. It's already $21 trillion for the national debt, and basically we're funding our lifestyle by mortgaging our kids and grandkids' future, and that's a sad thing. Yeah,
we definitely have to work on that one, but it's been going on for a really long time, and as you mentioned, I mean, it's something that is not going to be done overnight. $15 billion is nice, but it's not something that's going to fix things overnight. It's going to be that long process, and I really hope that we're able to maintain some type of majority or some type of control in order to continue this, because as you mentioned, just sitting down for appropriations processes, we have not seen that in a really long time because we're so accustomed now to just doing the annual omnibus bills.
That's right. And it's really, I know there's 51 Republicans in the Senate, but that's really not working control of the Senate because the Democrats have been dragging their feet on everything over there. And you go back, it's been over 12 years since all 12 of our federal appropriations bills have been passed by both chambers and affected into law. In fact, over the last 12 years, only once during 1 year was one of the appropriations bills passed, and that was because of one of the pandemic outbreaks, and so it provided funding for that. And we just need to get back to regular order. We need to go through, debate bills like appropriations, introduce them in one chamber, go through the amendment process, vote them up or down, move them to the next chamber, pass them, get to the president, and just govern that way instead of these last-minute mega bills like an omnibus that has some good stuff in it, but has a lot of bad stuff as well.
Exactly. Well, and speaking of that, I mean, the last omnibus bill that we voted on, there was a lot of misunderstanding about what happened when it comes to like the funding of Planned Parenthood and the family planning funding that was in there. And a lot of criticism came out of that, of conservatives supporting this bill because it still had some funding for Planned Parenthood in there. But I know that was what it did, it allowed the opportunity for the president to begin stopping the funding on his level, because so far beforehand it was tied up prior. Where are we at right now when it comes to that family planning funding and the potential of that actually going away to where we're not funding Planned Parenthood as we had before?
That's right. There really was some misunderstanding around how that last omnibus bill. Basically, what the omnibus bill did is it did not fund Planned Parenthood. What it did do was fund Title X grants. Title X grants are part of Health and Human Services. It's a way to help provide family planning for individuals. Unfortunately, from the Clinton administration through the Obama administration, they had used Title X funding as a funding mechanism for Planned Parenthood. There were $50 or $60 million a year that were being funneled into Planned Parenthood through these grants. And basically what President Trump has said is that he did not want to use fund Planned Parenthood, fund abortion through these Title X grants. It wasn't outlawed in the omnibus. Since then, what we've done is I headlined and co-sponsored a letter to Secretary Azar and encouraged him, and he's moving forward with passing a Protect Life rule, which basically is making the regulations for Title X funding going back to the way they were during President Reagan's era. Things have been they'd already been signed off by the Supreme Court as these were appropriate regulations. And so basically the regulations will prohibit anybody who's an abortion provider from getting Title X grants. That if you are an organization that does abortions, you have to have a separate facility. And we want Title X funding to help family planning and do legitimate family planning with legitimate medical facilities. And so it's a great thing that this administration, great thing that the Secretary Azar is moving forward with that Protect Life rule.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the prime example of what we've talked about so many times about doing it in the baby steps. You cannot get everything you want to right off the bat and do the whole all or nothing kind of mentality. This is what we did. The omnibus bill began to allow this opportunity to happen. Now we're doing this bill, as you co-sponsored this one, to start defunding Planned Parenthood at that level, so where the money's going towards actual taking care of families, not actually towards the abortion side of this issue through the Title X funding. So this is the baby steps that we've always tried to work towards, and this is a positive step.
That's right. And, as you mentioned, the Democrats are very good at starting those baby steps. They're very good at starting a program with very little money to start with and then making it grow over the years. And we've got to use that same approach to actually cut that spending down and reduce that. I mean, we're always going to have spending for the federal government. I mean, there is a role for the federal government, but it should be minimized, and it's ballooned out of control, and we've got to move it down. We've got to figure out all sorts of ways to end programs that outlive their usefulness, programs that aren't effective, and let's make sure we get our own house in order and manage the taxpayers' money like we have to manage our own family's money.
Exactly. Congressman Ron Estes, we got about a minute left before we're going to let you go here, but I do want to ask you, there's been the rumors and the whispers and the hush-hush about an immigration reform bill. Do you have any details on that? Do you know what's coming out of it? It sounded like at first that it wasn't going to be the biggest positive move when it comes to immigration reform, but what have you heard from the House side?
So we're really trying to work forward. The Senate tried several months ago, and they couldn't come up with anything that they agreed to. And several members, both Democrat and Republican, out of frustration, have started working towards supporting what will ultimately implement the Democrats' version of the DREAM Act, which is bad legislation. I mean, what it basically does is recreates the problems from the 1986, where amnesty is given to the so-called DACA individuals, but not addressing the border security. There's so many things broken in our immigration system. We need to work on that. I'm a supporter of the compromise legislation, the Goodlatte-McCall bill, which basically is sponsored by the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, chairman of Homeland Security. In it, we allow legal residency for the DACA children or DACA individuals. They're not all children anymore. But we address border security. That's the big piece in terms of making sure that we fund personnel, we fund a wall where it makes sense, we fund surveillance equipment like tunnel detection equipment.
Mm-hmm.
We end this extended chain migration where somebody can become a citizen and then they can bring in their spouse and their minor children, and adult children, and brothers and sisters and parents, and basically get it back to the core family.
Sure.
So when somebody becomes a citizen, they can bring in their spouse and bring in their minor children, and the other adults in their family can become citizens on their own. And what that does is it frees up lots of slots for merit-based, for people that have particular skills that we need in the country to help us with our economic growth.
So this is the bill that you guys actually proposed a while ago that was actually a really decent bill, just didn't go anywhere in the Senate, correct?
Well, we haven't passed it through the House yet. There's debate back and forth about it doesn't provide complete amnesty, which some people argue for. It also doesn't provide a huge penalty and doesn't provide the realistic that we're going to round everybody up that came here illegally with their parents and ship them back.
Right.
But it kind of charts a middle course. So what we're working on in the House is make sure we can get enough votes to get that passed. And there's so many things wrong with immigration. You can't fix them all in one bill. So we're trying to address enough of those things and make sure that we get a good bill that addresses a lot of things and helps improve a lot of the process. And so that process is what's being worked on now with the House. Very good.
Congressman Ron Estes, a lot of information coming out of Washington, D.C. very, very quickly. Keep up the great work, my friend. I appreciate you swinging in so early. We'd love to chat with you again soon.
All right. Great, Danny. It's always great talking to you.
Always a pleasure. Appreciate that. Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District. Got to take a quick break. Wrapping up hour number 1. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Wrapping up hour number 1 right here on a Tuesday. Appreciate Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District here chiming in. A great conversation. Always love talking to him. We'll get him back on the show again soon. Lots more that we need to talk about, but it's great information. And a reminder for you as we go into the primary season, the difference of what's going to be on the ballot. More information, I'm sure, is going to come out of that story in some way, shape, or form. But the real, quote-unquote, real Ron Estes not being allowed to be used by Ron M. Estes as the competitor. Here's the crazy thing. You would think that if you're actually running for an election or running for a seat, that you would, campaign and talk to people. But this is a fake hashtag fake news, or at least hashtag fake account or fake candidate, when you just file and then you say, don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to the media. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm going to stay in my home, and don't you dare try and track me or track me down. And don't come to my house, by the way, either. Don't do it. That's all it is. It's there to sabotage. End of story. That's it. If you would talk to individuals, he's welcome to come on the show, and let's have a little chat. This is your show, as always. Time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 2 of The Voice Reason coming up. Lots more to get to today, along with your phone calls. It's a Tuesday morning. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
Because now we're introducing the one thing that we have that can actually change the mentality of the people that we're trying to influence, and that is capitalism. We can change their diplomacy. We can change their leaders. We can overthrow the dictators. We can try and quote-unquote free the people, but unless the people know what to do with that freedom, they're lost. The one way that we can change things is introduce capitalism.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 2. Boy, this show goes by fast. Holy moly. Welcome in hour number 2 of the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation. Here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Great to have you along today on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday, and it really is a Patriotic Tuesday after what happened yesterday with the summit with North Korea and the United States. President Trump making history. Whether you acknowledge it, admit it, or not, that's the fact, that's the reality, that's what's happening, and it's kind of exciting, is it not? We get to live in great times today, and I think that we should celebrate as such on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Lots more coming up. We just talked within the last half hour Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional seat, talking about the election, on what the ballots are going to look like when it goes into the primary against Ron M. Estes. And along with some of the other budgetary debates, the appropriations debate that's going on right now, the Title X funding for Planned Parenthood, and that being cut, and other great news that's happening. So we will replay that interview, I think, in the 8 o'clock hour at some point. I'm not sure whether the top of the 8 o'clock hour or the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour, but being it was a little bit early and not all the listeners usually get to tune in the 6 a.m. hour, I will replay that interview in the 3rd hour at some point, so stay tuned in for that. Also, coming up in about 20 minutes from now, as usual, City Council member Mr. Brian Fry going to swing by the studio. Always love chatting with him, and we got a lot to discuss with him as well. But until then, it is open lines to you at 316-721-8255. The Facebook Live feed is open as well. You can always shoot a message on there. Like it, share it. A lot of people actually tuning into that this morning, and we do appreciate that very much. So yesterday, we had a great day on the Facebook Live. I don't know what the difference was. We always see trends, and I always get to watch. I don't get to watch it really live as it's happening. I just kind of get to see the numbers after the show, and we've been kind of muddling and kind of plateaued for a little while. And then yesterday, we saw a big spike. And every once in a while, we see those spikes, whether the show is actually good that day or whether it's just the time appropriate that you actually have to be able to tune into some of that stuff. So whether you're on the radio, on TV, or on Facebook Live, we do very, very, very much appreciate you checking out the show. And hopefully, we have enough great discussions that you want to continue to tune in and chime in and call into the show at 316-721-8255. Being that we're going to go into the city issues here in just a little bit, I want to talk about some city issues, but not the city of Wichita. I really want to rely on our listeners down in the Haysville area, and I know that we have a lot of listeners down in the Haysville area on the south end of Wichita, but I'm really curious. And the city council ended up convening yesterday to discuss the idea of utility rate hikes for Haysville. And I'm not quite sure why. I know that there was the study done that said that we need to have a substantial increase from what the story says, substantial increase in water and stormwater rates. The study recommends increasing the monthly water fee to $3.50 per 1,000 gallons, which is up 24% over the current $2.82 rate, which was set back in 2009. It also recommends adding the $7 flat monthly fee to fund capital projects, and recommends increasing the monthly stormwater utility fee from $175 to $250. The study proposes leaving wastewater rates unchanged. The question that I have is why? Why would we want to raise rates right now? Of course, we're talking about tax rates at the state level. We've talked about property tax increases. I know the city of Wichita is trying not to raise any type of taxes, but they've had their budgetary stuff that they've talked about with some of the expansion of certain departments or certain areas, and how we fund that stuff is hopefully going to be compensated by cuts that we do in other areas, and we'll talk about that stuff coming up in a little bit with Brian Fry. But I'm really curious as to why utility rates need to go up. Now, well, they've been, inflation in 2009, and it's been a long time, and we need to have substantial rates. Look, the population of Haysville is actually relatively small at just over 11,000 people, and only really about a $2 million budget for the entire city of Haysville. But utility rates, what's the purpose of a utility rate? For you to pay for the utility, what's the purpose of it? Where does that money go? Well, it's supposed to go towards the process of actually providing you the utility, right? Really nothing else. It's not supposed to be for a gain. It's not supposed to be for a profit. It's really supposed to be kind of a net neutral type of program, which is really ironic when we talk about some of the other utilities happening in the state, whether it's the current utility company that we have in this area or on the western part of the state, and the monopoly that we really have here, because we have private companies that provide the utilities, which, obviously private companies look towards profits, but then they're regulated by the city, they're regulated by the county or by the government to some degree, because it is a utility service provided to you by the government. Your water and your water company is not necessarily a private entity. It is a company, but it works for the city, does it not? At least I'm aware of that's how it works, because it is a public utility. It's not a private consumeristic product that you choose to purchase or not choose to purchase. You kind of mandated it. If you live in a zoning area where you have a home or a residency or a business, then you're kind of mandated to carry the water. And if you do carry the water, then that's the only place that you can actually get it. So you pay into your utility rates for that water. Is it supposed to be for a profit? No, not necessarily. It's supposed to be kind of a net neutral program. Why would we be looking for profits on there? Because they're looking to increase. Is that what they're doing? I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the city of Haysville right now, which is why I want to rely on you. And if you do live down there and you have heard, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Why are we looking for more revenue coming in from utilities? Is it because maybe the expenditures got out of hand for the utility company and they need to compensate and offset that a little bit? Is it because the city's looking for a profit from that in order to be able to expand some other programs? What is the reasoning that we would want to do such a substantial utility rate increase right now at this point? Especially at this time. Timing is always everything as well, especially in politics. And if we're going to be talking about utility rate increases, why would we do it in the heat of the summer right now when your electric bill is probably double than what it usually is the rest of the year because you're running your AC every single day? I'm sure some people are not very happy about this. But why? The utility rate study prepared by the city of Haysville and released last week recommends a substantial increase in water and stormwater rates. Why? That would be my very first question. Why? Well, because it's not average to the rest of the state. So what? If that's the case, then wouldn't that entice more people to want to come there? Wouldn't that make the people happy? I mean, come on, you got 11,000 people there. It's a relatively smaller town. Why wouldn't you want to try and keep them content? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Obviously, there's a lot. It goes a lot deeper than that. But from someone that sees a $2 million budget for a city, are you trying to grow exponentially? Are you trying to create more city projects? What are you trying to do that would want to raise your rates that much? And as a consumer down there, are you okay with the rates going up that much? Because utility rates seem to be a hot topic and a hot commodity to debate right now as we talk about some of the utility companies wanting, on the electric side with electric companies, wanting to go after the solar panels, wanting to offer services to consumers to fund city projects with revenue when, again, it's not supposed to be revenue generating, but a net neutral kind of program other than being able to maintain the service that they actually provide. There's a very tricky line when it comes to utility companies, whether it's water or whether it's electric, that as a private business that's not necessarily a private business, you really don't need to be looking for a whole bunch of revenue, positive in the green kind of revenue, because that means you're milking the consumer. Enough to save up to be able to enhance your programs? Yeah, maybe. Enough to be able to enhance the equipment? Maybe. Enough to be able to take care of the consumers? Absolutely. But other than that, it's not supposed to be kind of a CEO kind of thing, walking around with a private jet flying around, talking about that you provide a public service to the community. And do you have a right to be able to sign off on this? If you live in a residential area, let's say within Wichita, if I live in Wichita, I live in District 1 of Wichita up in the northeast corner, and if I just said, you know what, I really don't want to sign up for water. I really don't want to sign up for electric. I'm going to dig my own well in the backyard. I'm going to tap into the water table below us, and I'm going to put solar panels on my home so that way I'm totally 100% independent and I don't have to use the utilities provided by the city. Am I allowed to do that? No. I can put the solar panels on my house. I'd still have to be wired up to the utilities, to the electric bill, and then the electric company will probably come after me and say that I need to pay my fair share because I was using X amount, now I'm not using nearly as much, and now I need to pay my fair share to be able to help compensate for everybody else around me that doesn't have solar panels, because that's the argument that we're in right now. But am I allowed to say, you know what, I really don't want to have the city water, I'm going to dig my own well? Because I think that I have the right to do so. It's my own private property. I'm going to dig my well down into the water table, and I'm not going to use a public service that's provided as an option, or should be an option, to me. See, I kind of live more in the libertarian front on this side, to where I think that if people choose to tap in at their own accord, then they should have the right to do so. I know that obviously that's never going to happen. I'm not even going to try and bring it up because that is kind of a far-fetched idea with some places when it comes to zoning, because some people probably aren't going to like the fact that there's wells tapped everywhere. But I grew up in rural communities. And even in the rural communities here in Kansas, for whatever reason, everything's all zoned out to where you live in your own little communities with, again, the city, quote-unquote, water. Really only the wells I see are out on the agricultural front. But I grew up in Ohio on a farm with 80 acres of farmland, to where we had a well that was 30 feet deep because that was where the water table was, and we had plenty of water. We didn't have to worry about a thing. I grew up in Colorado, to where we lived on the side of the mountain, and our well was 850 feet deep because we had to go down past underneath the mountain in order to get to the water table. But it was our own private water, our well, in order to provide us water. I've never had to be dependent on public services per se, except for, of course, the utilities for the electric bills. But as independent as you possibly could be, you had the right to do so. And it kind of brings up the topic of you're being forced into a public good, a public service, and then they get to set the rates for you to charge whatever they want to for whatever projects that they deem necessary. And that's kind of a problem, isn't it? That's kind of one of those where you raise your hand and say, wait a second, don't we have a say in this? And you have a little bit of a say. But isn't it a little concerning that you don't have a choice to not be on the programs as a public service? And a public service, by definition, public service means it's provided to you if you choose to do so, because it's a service that they offer to you, but you don't necessarily have to accept. But now we're forced to accept it, and then they set the rates for us for whatever reason, whether it's because they want to expand their projects, whether it's because they want to give it to the city to be able to do their own projects, or whether it's because they just need to compensate off and offset their expenses. There's a big difference between those three options, is there not? But we don't have a whole lot of say in that. And I'm very concerned when more and more people come to the conclusion that, well, the public service is there, so therefore it's mandatory that you take it. It really falls into the healthcare debate, doesn't it? Oh, it's a public health care program. Yeah, it's offered to you, so therefore you must take it. The wicked, wild, free thinkers of the left-wing progressives that think that universal socialized health care is thinking free is by being independent and being a free thinker. And I don't understand that concept either, because how are you a wicked, wild, free thinker if you believe in socialized medicine where you have one option? Oh, you can keep your doctor. Sure, if your doctor survives the health insurance taking advantage of them not being able to get paid for anything, or them not being able to charge what they need to. So then you end up charging $50 for a cotton ball to submit it to the insurance so that way you can get 10 cents on the dollar. And we're supposed to be okay with that kind of process because that's what government-run healthcare does. That's what government utilities do at times. Because then we just think that that is the one and only option. Government, in sometimes good cases, most time bad cases, government gets rid of all competition and creates one service. And then as someone who thinks that we have different options under a free market capitalist society, we no longer have offers and choices, but we have one option that we're forced to take. And as public utilities, obviously, that's kind of the way it goes. But then we don't have even the choice to say, no, you know what, I don't choose to actually do that. I don't have the choice to actually say, I'm going to go my own way and do something different. And then if you do that, then you're the wicked, wild, free thinker, or at least you're the conspiracy theorist where you have the tinfoil hat and you just don't want to live off the grid because you don't want the government to come get you, and then you get labeled as a nut job. It's very interesting how they've labeled us in many different cases to be demonized just because of the fact that we question some of the utility rates. So there it is, Haysville. If you do live in that area, Haysville utility rates when it comes to water and stormwater rates going up dramatically, it seems like, and they debated that yesterday. We'll have some more information, hopefully, on that as they progress and make their decision on what's actually going to happen there. 22 minutes past the hour. We got lots more to cover today. Your thoughts and calls as well. Plus, Brian Fry, city council member for the city of Wichita, swinging in here in just a little bit. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
27 minutes past the hour. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. Making it happen today on a Tuesday. Better, if I can talk today, good golly, better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink, because that's the way we roll right here today. By the way, it is that time.
If we're going to be brutally honest, the drawing you made of me when you were 3 was far from a perfect likeness.
All right, Meg, stay incredibly still. I'm going to whip that cigarette out of your mouth and maybe not slice your face in half.
I need some peace and quiet. I want to focus on the turkey. Everyone just go to bed.
Bob, it's 6:30.
I don't care. Just go to bed.
You love that turkey more than you love us.
That's right. I do.
Call now at 721-8255 and get registered for the Ultimate Father's Day with KQAM.
Oh, there it is. It's the Ultimate KQAM Father's Day giveaway brought to you by Road and Roofing, 358 South Laura Street. Visit them, roadandroofing.com, along with Auburn Hills Wine and Spirits. Auburn Hills Wine and Spirits on Facebook. Check them out. It is the Ultimate KQAM Father's Day giveaway. Here's what you get. Now, we're getting someone registered each day this week. We're going to be giving it away Friday before the end of the show. But you get four ticket vouchers to the Kansas City Royals game of your choice. You get to choose what game to go to. 4 tickets to the Wichita Open Golf Tournament. 2 tickets to 81 Speedway to choose what race that you'd like to go to. 2 tickets to the Wichita Wingnuts game on July 4th with fireworks. At the end of that, you get that entire package. KGSO is doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing, but you get registered. You really have a 1 in 5 chance to actually win that. So let's go ahead and do caller number 3 right now. Caller number 3 at 721-8255-3167 on Talk will get you registered for the Ultimate KQAM Father's Day giveaway, brought to you again by Road and Roofing and Auburn Hills Wine and Spirits. Really excited to do this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. Father's Day is always a great time in order to appreciate that father in your life. Whether you are that father, whether it's your father, whether it's that significant other that you have, make sure to get them that special goodie, and we want to help you provide that right here with KQAM with the ultimate Father's Day giveaway brought to you by Roden Roofing and Auburn Hills Wine and Spirits. Phones are lighting up. We'll take caller number 3 here in just a moment. Bottom of the hour news coming up when we come back. We'll shift gears a little bit to the Wichita City Council. Mr. Brian Fry, the man himself, going to be swinging in, chatting with us as he always does on a Tuesday. This is The Voice of Reason. Lots more to get to today. Stay here.
Dark day every day.
It's time for your daily dose of reason.
Are you insane? I don't know. Just ignore him.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Making it happen, doing the thing. Welcome into a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. That's the way we roll today as we wake you up the right way. Not sure exactly what that means to you sometimes. You can choose however you'd like to when it comes to the right way. You having trouble there? Which one?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, there we go. All right, making sure it is that time as we do it every single Tuesday.
We built this city.
As we have our city council member in from the Wichita City Council, Mr. Brian Fry. Brian, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Andy. How are you today?
Doing great. Great to have you. Now, for whatever reason, my guest camera is not functioning appropriately.
That's probably better. I have a face for radio.
Well, you broke it.
I don't have the velvet voice you do, but I got the face for radio.
Well, I don't know about that. Yeah, I put it up and it just broke. So we'll get that back up for next week. But not on camera if you're watching TV or Facebook Live right now. But Brian Fry is hanging out in studio with us as he does every Tuesday, which we always appreciate. And you guys have had some fun lately.
You know, it's been a hectic season. I mean, we got a lot of stuff going on. We're in the budget cycle and the capital improvement cycle. So we got a lot of stuff we're dealing with and trying to figure out and making sure that we're planning appropriately going forward. So
Sure. I was almost expecting the Wichita jacket today.
My flag suit?
That's right, the flag
Boy,
suit.
God, I had so much fun with that. I've had requests to get chaps. You know,
there you go.
I don't think that would work
or
so
some
well.
Suspenders? There you go.
But the flag jacket has just been great. Special thanks to Fruhoff Uniforms. They really knocked it out of the park and had so much fun during the festival with it. So it's fantastic to see the Wichita pride and people recognizing it and displaying it. So a lot of fun. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's always good. And you know what? As you mentioned, it is really nice to see the community just being really proud and embracing the community. When people are off kind of doing their own thing and whatever, you know, it's nice. But at the same time, when we all come together and say, you know what, hey, we're proud of where we're from and where we are right now, that means that they're invested in the community to try and make it a better place.
Right, and we've actually really seen a difference. I don't know if you're familiar with the Chung Report, but noted researcher from Wichita has been really studying the Wichita economics and where we're going as a community. And a couple of years ago, he said our perception and our mojo was gone.
Sure.
And last night he did an update, and he said it's coming back very strong. And so there's still some things we need to continue to work on, but he was very pleased that in his research it showed that the perception and the way we feel about ourselves and the way we carry our community, it's more than just putting a flag on a flagpole.
Sure.
It's definitely being manifested in ways in company and investing. I mean, today we got a great story. Wesley is investing significantly on their campus, adding a $100 million remodeling project. That will entail 66 new jobs paying at $60,000 a year.
Wow.
I mean, so that's a significant investment. Wichita is a regional medical center for this part of the state, and to have that kind of investment in Wichita on their facility, that's fantastic. And the only thing that they're requesting is a sales tax abatement on the materials used to do it. So there's no property tax abatement, it's just sales tax abatement. So that makes our return on that investment a 22-1.
Sure.
That's a home run any day of the week, right? Seeing that kind of investment in our community and increasing that economic driver of healthcare and continuing to just do great things over there. So Yes, I mean, things are going great right now, and we're starting to see not only the pride increase, but then seeing that investment and making people continue to do business here.
Sure. What did you say? It was the Chung Report?
Chung Report.
The Wang Chung Report? Everybody have fun tonight?
Yeah, James Chung. Very nice. He's a Wichitan, but he's now based in the Northeast and a noted researcher from Harvard. And he's doing this all on his he's really giving back to the community. And you can find it at thechungreport.com. It's very detailed analytics about where we're at and where we've been going. So. Good.
Well, good. We have that community involvement. We have the excitement. And as you mentioned, job growth in the area, which is what everybody's been looking for, because it has been a little stagnant for a while, really statewide, not really just a city issue, but or county issue, but a statewide issue.
Very much.
And we're seeing that increase. That's good news.
Yeah, very much continues to be a statewide issue. Kansas is one of the few states that had negative growth. And we're challenged with the competition in our region. And it goes back to we got to continue to develop. We got to continue to have a workforce for the jobs that we have.
Sure.
We can't have any more outflow of migration. We need to continue to make this a great quality of life, a great place for people to want to live, because we're in a dogfight. We've got surrounding states that are coming after us, coming after our great jobs and our people. So it's a continual battle.
Sure. Let's talk about some of the city issues. Of course, the summertime, which means everything always heats up, pun intended, when it comes to the budgetary debates, when it comes to some of the projects happening in the city, and, of course, the ongoing issue that has been discussed for a really long time, which is, of course, some of the city pools, and some of those decisions actually coming to a close, it sounds like.
Well, I don't know that it's going to be at a close today. I think we have more information that we continue to need. So a few years ago, we started the Aquatics Master Plan and starting to figure out how we operate our city pools. And bottom line is none of them are making the money that they need to make. Cost recovery is way low. Some of them were in the 18, 20%. We had a couple of them that were much higher, but not to the point they're ever going to make a profit. I mean, you want to get to revenue neutral as much as you can.
Sure.
So the Aquatics Master Plan really studied it, and it was determined that we had too many pools and we couldn't afford them all. And so the recommendation was to start closing some pools and replace them with splash pads. And so February of last year, we approved closing all of the pools over time, not all at once.
Sure.
But as we close one and then replace it with the splash pad. And then later that summer, I guess it was last August, the council added $4 million back into the capital improvement plan to build a new pool in one of the districts where we were closing a pool. So we closed McAdams, and the council approved $4 million to build a pool somewhere else in District 1.
Okay.
And so now staff is coming to us as part of the whole design plan for all the splash pads and saying, okay, we need to build it. And they're recommending that we build it in McAdams Park, which is one of the pools that we closed. I understand the passion and the emotion behind it. I don't understand the business behind that idea.
Sure.
And we got to have some more information, because what we have right now is certainly not enough to make a $4 million decision. And that's just the capital cost. We also have the ongoing operating expense where right now it's projecting at 18.2% cost recovery. We can't sustain that.
Right.
I mean, we've got hard choices to make in our budget. We want to add more police. We want to add more services along police, fire. We want to continue to invest in our water and public utilities, roads and bridges and clean water.
Sure.
And we have to have, we have to be able to manage that. We're in a tight economic environment right now.
Sure.
And so
$4 million for one pool.
Right.
Wow.
And so we can't afford cost recovery of 18%. I mean, that means we're foregoing other services that we could be doing that are more critical to our mission of a safe, healthy community. So, they're asking us to make a decision today on a location for the pool in District 1. I'm not comfortable enough that I have the information I need to make that recommendation at this point. So I don't know if the rest of the council feels that way, if we'll make that decision today. It's prickly as a cactus, right? I mean, it's just, you can't win because there are people that are in that community in District 1 that absolutely remember McAdams Pool when it was thriving and won it back, and I get that. I learned to swim at Edgemoor Pool growing up, and that was a pool that we had to close about 6 years ago because it was losing a foot of water a day.
That's a lot of water.
It's a large pool too, if you know it.
Sure.
And so we could never find the leak. It was underground below the pool somewhere, so we just couldn't afford that. And so, again, these are unpopular decisions, but do they go back to the core critical mission of what we do on a limited financial picture? Mm-hmm. And those are the things that we got to do right now.
Well, for someone who's concerned about the budget and about expenditures at the city level, I mean, that is a hefty price when I see a price tag of saying $4 million just to get it going, plus the maintenance and the upkeep of what it's going to take every single year to be able to maintain that, as opposed to, again, how much does it cost to put in a splash pad at some of these areas?
So a splash pad is about $750,000.
Okay.
Also, you have significant operating differences in that a pool in Wichita, a public pool, is open from roughly Memorial Day to late August.
Sure.
And they're only open during the daylight hours. And actually, I think we close most of them about 6 p.m.
Okay.
So very limited hours, limited calendar, whereas a splash pad can open in April and run into October, and they operate 24/7. Our parks are closed at midnight, but they can run all day long.
Sure.
There's no lifeguard expense. So your operating cost is
and a lot less water.
Exactly. So no, it's no substitute for learning how to swim.
Sure.
You can't do that in a splash pad. But
you can try. you can lay on the concrete and just kind of move your arms, pretend, and get the motion going. I mean,
that would be a sight to see.
That's a YouTube video right there.
There you go. But there's other providers that can do that. The YMCA has fantastic programs. We're fortunate to have a fantastic Y in this community.
Sure.
So there are options on learn how to. And again, we still have some pools open, College Hill and Ailey and Harvest, and we haven't closed all the pools yet. But my point is there are alternatives to learn how to swim. But that relief from the heat, that inexpensive recreation options, splash pads are great. Yes, I get they're not for everybody, that they're not for teens and young adults. They don't have that same thrill that a pool does for that age group. But again, we have to make difficult, tough choices. And I'd love to be able to say we've got brand new pools. I'd love to say we have brand new parks and everything, but we're just not in that environment right now.
Sure. Well, and when it comes to the parks, when it comes to investments that the city does for the entertainment of the children for that thing, it's almost worth, again, putting in either the splash pads where it's a one-time investment or the playground set where it's a one-time investment instead of something like that with the continuous upkeep and the maintenance that goes along with that. Do you see almost down the road when it comes to some of these investments that the other 3 or 4 pools that are currently open right now, do you see those almost going to the wayside if the conversation continues like this?
Well, and again, College Hill Pool is different because there's a subsidy that is provided by the neighbors in the College Hill district. They have allowed themselves to be taxed additional assessments to be able to help pay for that pool.
That. Okay.
So that's a little different situation. The other 2 pools, Haley and Harvest, generate close to 100% cost recovery with over 11,000 swimmers annually. So those pools, as long as they continue to meet that and close to that cost recovery, I think they're not in danger because, again, revenue neutral. And again, this is all based also on the idea is that if we can continue to grow this economy and continue to improve and get more people living here and generating more revenue, then we can go back and look at, okay, where is the most sense to put a new pool or to replace or upgrade one of the ones that we're closing.
Sure.
Splash pads are great to have, and I think we're going to, at the end of the day, after it's all done, we'll have 15 in the community. So, those are a great recreational option, but it's not where we ultimately are going to solve everything.
Sure.
The bottom line is the best way we can do this is to continue to grow revenue, get people living here, and investing so we can make more quality of life issues and improvements.
Sure. Can I make a request? When
Absolutely.
It comes to some of the parks, I think that we should put in a citywide laser tag gaming system. I think that would be pretty fantastic there.
You ever play paintball?
Or paintball. I love paintball. See, there we go.
Get you out on a course and play some paintball. That'd be all right.
That's what we need to do. Have the park there and have the playground on one side and then a paintball ring on the other side. And I think that we'd be pretty solid there. I love it. Well, good. That's a conversation that's going to continue on. That going to be discussed today at the city council meeting?
Yes. So today, council meeting, 9 a.m., Central and Main, first floor City Hall. I expect, just by the amount of emails that I've gotten, we'll probably have a pretty good crowd there today. We have no public speakers, but on this agenda item, I imagine we'll have quite a few people speaking on it.
Sure.
So I get down there early. You don't want to be the last in line,
Absolutely.
And you might not get in time.
Sure. It should be a pretty heated, or at least a big one with a big conversation.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of conversation. Again, I don't know that we'll get to a final decision today.
Sure.
But I think because there's more stuff I need, more information from staff to provide. But certainly we invite people to come down and give us their thoughts and share their opinions.
Sure.
Always want that.
Absolutely. I love it. City council meeting. City council member Brian Fry coming up today. Make sure to go check that out. A great conversation if you live in the Wichita area and you want to chime in on that conversation. Again, how can people go to that meeting today?
Again, City Hall, Central and Main, first floor, 9 a.m.
There we go. And Wang Chung, my friend. There you go. Going to be good times. Brian Fry, always good to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you, Andy.
There we are. Got to take a break. 9 minutes at the top of the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's going to be one heck of a debate when it comes to the city and what's going to happen with some of the polls, what's going to happen with some of the public parks. It's always a great debate there. Hopefully everybody can show up, make a comment, and chime in on your opinion, especially in the 1st District where I'm at today. 316-720-8255. Thanks again to Brian Fry, City Council member, swinging in studio, giving us that update. We'll do a county update tomorrow with Sedgwick County Commissioner Mr. Jim Howell. Coming up, hour number 3, we got lots more to address your phone calls as well. I'm going to replay an interview that we did at 6:30 this morning with Congressman Ron Estes talking about not only the election and the ballot when it comes to Ron M. Estes, and we did address that a little bit, but also talked about some of the appropriations debates happening right now, the Title X reform when it comes to funding Planned Parenthood, and, of course, some of the immigration discussions happening in the House right now. So there was a lot of discussion. We chatted with him for a good 15-20 minutes this morning. It was a great conversation. We'll re-air that. I think we'll do that when we come back at the top of the hour, so that way you have time to respond to it if you choose to do so. We want to give you plenty of time to digest it and to be able to comment on it. So looking forward to that. Congressman Ron Estes will air that interview coming up. Plus, I have not gotten to it yet today, but creditors, like credit card companies, are now beginning to ban transactions used with their credit cards to purchase firearms. Is that a violation of the Second Amendment? Obviously it is. We'll talk about that and get your thoughts on it as well. But stores having to actually track down the customers that bought not even guns, but coffee cups and T-shirts from gun stores, or even training courses at gun stores. And because it was related in any way, shape, or form to the Second Amendment and to firearms, the transactions were canceled. The business actually gets the receipt saying that they were canceled, and them having to track down the consumer in order to try and get payment for those services that they bought, thinking that they could just run their credit card and swipe it and be able to do that. So some crazy news on that one. We may have to get Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, on the show in the next day or two to talk about that story, but we will comment on that as well. Plus, your thoughts if you want to talk about the summit happening with North Korea yesterday and President Donald Trump. Kind of big news. Not sure if you're aware or not, kind of like history-making news that we're going to read in the history book soon. The progressives still just all up in arms about it because how dare he do a summit, and then how dare he actually follow through with the summit. We'll talk about all that and more coming up in hour number 3 of The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
Because now we're introducing the one thing that we have that can actually change the mentality of the people that we're trying to influence, and that is capitalism. We can change their diplomacy. We can change their leaders. We can overthrow the dictators. We can try and quote-unquote free the people, but unless the people know what to do with that freedom, they're lost. The one way that we can change things is introduce capitalism.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. It's great to have you along on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. I want to jump right in it so we have plenty of time, but at 6:30 this morning, earlier in the morning, we interviewed Congressman Ron Estes up in Washington, D.C., talking about a plethora of different issues, and I want to have time to play the entire interview so that way you can comment on it, because there is a lot of news happening right now, both with the summit from North Korea. That is great news, from the appropriations debates to the upcoming elections. There's a lot of things that are actually happening right now that we need to get to. So without further ado, Congressman Ron Estes, from what we talked about earlier this morning right here on the Voice of Reason. Congressman Ron Estes back on the line with us. Congressman, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Andy?
Hey, doing great. I appreciate you joining so early. It is it's ready to go for a nice Tuesday. And I have to say, we always call it a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday, but this is one of the best Tuesdays we could have, because I don't get the left. They can't admit that this is actually a good thing, but the summit yesterday with North Korea and President Trump seemed to go relatively well. What was your thoughts on it?
I think it really did. And you know, there have been so many mistakes made over the years with North Korea, and basically us making bad deals, United States making bad deals with previous presidents. And I have a lot of confidence in President Trump and Secretary of State Pompeo that they're going to work and make sure that that the things, that the arrangements and the discussions that we have with North Korea help lead towards a more peaceful and verify that they're actually following the deals and the arrangements of the deal.
Sure. Well, and that trust but verify mentality is there, and I wholeheartedly trust President Trump and Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, on not just letting our guard down and letting something bad happen, but giving him the opportunity to do the right thing if he does, and if he doesn't, then we're kind of right there to make that to catch it before anything gets out of hand.
That's right. And you know, it's kind of great to see that they're actually engaging the way they are. You know, of course, people that want to criticize the president or are complaining that he's actually having the summit, they're the same people that, 3 months ago, they were complaining because they thought the summit wasn't going to happen.
He can never win. Well, it's going to be good. We're looking forward to seeing what happens on that front. Let's bring it back home a little bit, though. I got to ask, the biggest news, of course, that happened last week, and we've been talking about it, and I trying to do a little digging, understanding what's going on here. But last minute, it seems like you end up getting a primary challenger for the 4th congressional seat, and not only a primary challenger, but it seems like you're running almost against yourself, Congressman Ron Estes, as Ron M. Estes is on the ballot. What's the latest scoop there? And as we go to the voting booth in a few months, what will the ballots officially look like?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the filing deadline was June 1st at noon. They came in and filed. He came in and filed, and I say they because I don't know who's behind this effort, but a guy by the name of Ron M. Estes, who actually I met first time about 10 years ago. So I know who he is, but you know, he's not run for office before. So it's really, we say the M stands for misleading, because really it looks like it's an attempt to try to mislead the voters and deceive them on who to vote for and how to vote. And so the Secretary of State had decided, using Kansas law, that they would list me on the ballot as Rep. Ron Estes. Kansas law says you can use a title, and he had been afforded that opportunity to have a title, you know, like doctor or CPA or something on his listing as well. And they protested that. The Democrats protested that. Yesterday, the hearing board basically made it official that I'm going to be listed on the primary ballot as Rep. Ron Estes, and he's going to be listed as Ron M. Estes. And hopefully we can help make sure that doesn't cause confusion for the voters. What's really important, I want to make sure that we talk a lot about all the positive things that are going on, the economy that's booming, the lower taxes, the lower regulation, the rebuilding the military, all the things that we're doing that's the right thing. You know, I don't know if you've talked about it, but in the last 7 months, in the last 49 years,
Mm-hmm.
only 7 months have the unemployment rate been below 4%.
Sure.
And 2 of those months have been the last 2 months, April and May. So we're living in unique times right now just because of the great work that we're doing with the economy. And I'm looking forward to talking about that on the campaign trail.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we've been talking about the elections and the quote unquote blue wave that's supposed to be sweeping the nation. And Congressman, I just don't see it. And especially with the positiveness, as you mentioned, with the unemployment rate being extremely low for everybody. If you want to look at special demographics between the African-American community, between the women demographic, between just everybody as a whole, with the economy coming back, with us beginning to repeal certain things. I mean, I don't remember the last time that we've been able to come in as an administration, as a Congress with the same party as the administration, and be able to repeal the previous administration stuff so dedicatedly for the last year. The economy's coming back. Then you see the meetings with North Korea and the positiveness happening there. I mean, if we run positive campaigns across the nation, we're not going to see anything near a blue wave, but it's going to be a red wave with even more seats being picked up, I think, from Republicans.
I don't know if we'll gain seats. We may lose a couple seats, but I do not think the Democrats are going to take the House of Representatives. I think we're going to hold on to the House of Representatives. There'll probably be a net couple seats lost on the Republican side just because of the way districts are, and we've got more members that are retiring than the Democrats do. But there's actually some districts that Democrats are in now that they're retiring in, going to be open seats in the Republican districts. So we're going to pick up some seats in those areas. And so I'm looking forward to, another 2 years with a Republican majority and helping lead to continue to make sure the economy grows. One of the things that is so important about that is you think about what the Democrats' first 3 votes will be if they get the majority in the House. One will be to elect Nancy Pelosi Speaker. The second vote will be to raise taxes again. And the third vote will be to start impeachment proceedings against President Trump. And we're going to work really hard to keep that from happening.
Well, that's I can't see that being a successful campaign tactic to think that that's what people actually want to vote on. So I find it quite comical. But you're right. I mean, and I'm glad to hear that you're going to be running a positive campaign as I kind of anticipated that you would. Do we know what the platform is from Ron M. Estes? Has he made I checked his website a few days ago, and it was just the one page of just the press release of announcing he was going to run, which not only that, but I heard, at least from the Secretary of State's office as well, that he's not going to be allowed to use the campaign slogan, what he was trying to do, of the real Ron Estes, and that's going to be taken off his campaign. But I don't know his tactic. I don't know his platform. I don't know his campaign. I don't know his slogan. I don't know what he's actually running on. Do you?
I don't either. I think it is just misleading, trying to deceive the voters. In fact, he and his wife have donated thousands of dollars over the years to the Democratic Party, $5,000 or $6,000 over the last 8 or 10 years to the Democrat Party, Democrat candidates, including my opponent from last year. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I just think if they're going to do that and run as Republicans, they shouldn't be supporting the Democrats that they're running against.
Well, that's true. And you're right. And just to clarify, I'm glad that you brought that up, is that you will be on the ballot as Rep. Ron Estes, while he will be on as Ron M. Estes. So hopefully that will clear some of that up. Talking about some of the positive news, let's shift gears a little bit to some of the debates coming up. I know that we focused on it, and I've been excited about the upcoming appropriations debates on what we can do to start trimming some of the budgets and some of the debates that will be happening up there. Talk about some of the $15 billion budget rescissions and what we could see in some of the money that may be coming out of the federal budget, which would be some really good news. Again, something else to campaign on.
It really will. I'm a big advocate of let's get back into the rescissions process. During every president from Jimmy Carter all the way through Bill Clinton had numerous rescissions during their terms. In fact, literally totaled up hundreds over the years. And basically what a rescission is just it's looking at a current program, looking at a program that doesn't make sense. It was useful years ago maybe, but doesn't make sense now. Or it was a program where we appropriated $100 million, and by the time we finished the work, we only needed $75 million. So there's an extra $25 million sitting over there. And I'm a big advocate of let's go back and get rescissions going. Of course, President Bush and President Obama didn't do any rescissions when they were there. And so what we've seen in the last two administrations is the debt just skyrocket because they're not focusing on how do we contain spending. And, $15 billion isn't going to balance the budget, but it's at least a starting point, and it gets things moving forward. It's things we're not using, like an energy program, a little under $5 billion that hasn't been used since 2011. And there was $148 million that was set aside for the avian flu back in 2015 and wasn't ever needed. There was money for the CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program, set aside for that. Well, we've just reauthorized CHIP for 10 years, the longest period of time it's ever been authorized for, and funded that. So we don't need to have that money set aside from the previous authorization. So we've now got to move forward, and we need to do more procedure. I'm looking forward to getting this one passed, and that's starting a whole new process of doing a whole lot of rescissions, a whole lot of spending.
Sure.
When I look at one of our biggest long-term threats for a country is our debt, and we can't continue to spend more money than we bring in. It's already $21 trillion for the national debt, and basically we're funding our lifestyle by mortgaging our kids and grandkids' future, and that's a sad thing. Yeah,
we definitely have to work on that one, but it's been going on for a really long time, and as you mentioned, I mean, it's something that is not going to be done overnight. $15 billion is nice, but it's not something that's going to fix things overnight. It's going to be that long process, and I really hope that we're able to maintain some type of majority or some type of control in order to continue this, because as you mentioned, just sitting down for appropriations processes, we have not seen that in a really long time because we're so accustomed now to just doing the annual omnibus bills.
That's right. And it's really, I know there's 51 Republicans in the Senate, but that's really not working control of the Senate because the Democrats have been dragging their feet on everything over there. And you go back, it's been over 12 years since all 12 of our federal appropriations bills have been passed by both chambers and affected into law. In fact, over the last 12 years, only once during 1 year was one of the appropriations bills passed, and that was because of one of the pandemic outbreaks, and so it provided funding for that. And we just need to get back to regular order. We need to go through, debate bills like appropriations, introduce them in one chamber, go through the amendment process, vote them up or down, move them to the next chamber, pass them, get to the president, and just govern that way instead of these last-minute mega bills like an omnibus that has some good stuff in it, but has a lot of bad stuff as well.
Exactly. Well, and speaking of that, I mean, the last omnibus bill that we voted on, there was a lot of misunderstanding about what happened when it comes to like the funding of Planned Parenthood and the family planning funding that was in there. And a lot of criticism came out of that, of conservatives supporting this bill because it still had some funding for Planned Parenthood in there. But I know that was what it did, it allowed the opportunity for the president to begin stopping the funding on his level, because so far beforehand it was tied up prior. Where are we at right now when it comes to that family planning funding and the potential of that actually going away to where we're not funding Planned Parenthood as we had before?
That's right. There really was some misunderstanding around how that last omnibus bill. Basically, what the omnibus bill did is it did not fund Planned Parenthood. What it did do was fund Title X grants. Title X grants are part of Health and Human Services. It's a way to help provide family planning for individuals. Unfortunately, from the Clinton administration through the Obama administration, they had used Title X funding as a funding mechanism for Planned Parenthood. There were $50 or $60 million a year that were being funneled into Planned Parenthood through these grants. And basically what President Trump has said is that he did not want to use fund Planned Parenthood, fund abortion through these Title X grants. It wasn't outlawed in the omnibus. Since then, what we've done is I headlined and co-sponsored a letter to Secretary Azar and encouraged him, and he's moving forward with passing a Protect Life rule, which basically is making the regulations for Title X funding going back to the way they were during President Reagan's era. Things have been they'd already been signed off by the Supreme Court as these were appropriate regulations. And so basically the regulations will prohibit anybody who's an abortion provider from getting Title X grants. That if you are an organization that does abortions, you have to have a separate facility. And we want Title X funding to help family planning and do legitimate family planning with legitimate medical facilities. And so it's a great thing that this administration, great thing that the Secretary Azar is moving forward with that Protect Life rule.
There it is, Congressman Ron Estes. We chatted with him earlier this morning. Had to get that on. Had to cut a little bit short. We went on a little bit longer talking about some of the other issues with the Planned Parenthood Title X funding and, of course, the immigration debate. We'll talk on all that and more. Plus, it's open line to you for the rest of the show. Your thoughts on all of this as we move forward, advancing conservatism. Now's the opportunity. Now is the chance for us to actually get it done. Now is the chance for us to actually advocate for these things, not to be on the defense, but to be on the offense to make some real reforms and some real changes. We'll talk about all that and more when we come back. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Let me ask you something. With all the great momentum that we have with the economy, with the trade deals, when it comes to actually standing up to our enemies, when it comes to actually negotiating peace in certain regions of the world, when it comes to, success, and people are flourishing and happy and doing better, let me ask you something. Is that a tool? Is that a source for anger, frustration, and fuel when it comes to the fire of the Democrats trying to take over the majority in a midterm election? Most midterm elections, there's a big change in dynamic when it goes to the other side as people are really upset. But if people aren't upset, then why change, right? Now we still have work to do. And Republicans, don't worry. You and I are still pretty upset about certain issues because we have a long way to go. Doesn't mean, though, that we can't actually enjoy the little bit of success that we actually have right now. Moving in the right direction, baby steps, chipping away at the establishment, the progressives, the elite, one step at a time. Bottom of the hour news coming up. It's open lines to you for the last half hour of the show on a Tuesday, a patriotic Tuesday, in a flourishing 80-degree, beautiful Tuesday morning, right here on the KQAM airwaves. Stay tuned.
Don't make that face on me, please. Don't make a sideshow of yourself.
Are you a Hoosier-holic?
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Call in now at 721-8255. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Can you imagine what the progressives are thinking at this time right now? Can you imagine? Just try and put yourself into their shoes just for a second. I know it's a really hard thing to do because it's kind of very awkward shoes to sit in, but try it just for a second and see what it's like. The progressives, the Democrats that are campaigning on reversing everything Trump's done, going back to Obamacare and even going further with Obamacare, giving amnesty to illegal aliens, to one of the largest degrees we've ever seen in the nation, to raising taxes, and then to try and impeach President Trump. That's the campaign that their slogan. I want to see what the campaign slogan actually says when all the campaign ads actually go out and the mail list goes out and the talking points go out. I want to hear what they have to say with that, because what are they thinking right now at this moment when they see President Donald Trump out and having the meeting with North Korea and with Kim Jong-un for making history, really, trying to denuclearize that area. I just saw a Facebook post that says if Trump wins the Nobel Peace Prize, I'm going to go nuts and lose my... Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he deserve that? Even in the attempt that try and create world peace. Why wouldn't we do that? Then you hear what we did talk about with Congressman Ron Estes today when it comes to the budget, $15 billion. That's not even close. It's chump change compared to what the federal government actually spends, but especially when it goes on to hundreds of billions of dollars a month that we're running in the red, but that's a start. What does Dave Ramsey always teach is that you always try and collect your little pennies and put the pennies away and save every little thing, and everything has a purpose, and every penny has a purpose, and the budget, and you try and budget everything else, and you have to start at the small, minuscule level, and that's a good start for that. And then we start the appropriations process, and we begin to clean up some of these programs and say, yeah, you know what? Instead of this, we can cut it back by 2, 5, 10, 20, 50%, depending on what you actually need. They're going to lose it. They're going to go nuts. They're going to panic. Then you see the argument of the Title X reform because, we did defund Planned Parenthood in the federal budget with the omnibus bill and the last one. And the big criticism was, wait a second, no, Title X funding is still there for Planned Parenthood. That's where they receive the majority of their money, or a large portion of their money, from the government. So we're still funding it. So conservatives, you hypocritical jerks, you actually didn't do anything because the Title X funding's still there. Baby steps. I never understand this whole, we need everything right now or else we'll never do anything. We'd rather watch everything burn and run off the cliff with the flag than actually understand that we're still advocating for the right agenda and the pure agenda. It just takes time to do so, and you have to do it in steps. We got to remember that. And is it difficult? Absolutely is it difficult. Can you get sidetracked and get off track because of obstructionists? Absolutely you can. But you will never, ever, 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 ever do something 100% in a purist mentality. It will never work. It will never happen. It's unrealistic. And in the world of politics, we live in a very unrealistic world with unrealistic standards at many times to where we actually want to do it. So what are we doing now? We defunded Planned Parenthood, that's specific, into the budget. Now, what do they have left? The Democrats going around the system trying to get the funding through Title X, which they have for a long time. So what do? Now we begin defunding Title X. And then they stop getting money that way. Then I'm sure they'll try to find another workaround to try to get funding elsewhere. And then we begin to defund that. And it's actually a dual purpose here. And we're really killing two birds with one stone, aren't we? Number one, we're defunding Planned Parenthood when it comes to the abortion issue. And then every different department or different way they try and actually collect their money in different programs, we start defunding them. So in a sense, we're also cutting some of the budget as well by defunding those programs they're trying to actually utilize. It's a win-win for us here. Because again,
Andy's optimism of the day.
All right, I'm ready.
And that's what we have to remember, is that we're always working. We're always in the ongoing chess game, and as long as we recognize what moves that they're going to be making on the chessboard, we can counteract that, and we can move first, and we can actually take it into our own hands. 316-721-8255. We are seeing positive things across the... Now what we have to focus on is the immigration debate. And as we mentioned before, the immigration debate is struggling a little bit because the House wanting to give amnesty as Republicans. I don't know why they're doing it now. They're still focused on the election. They're focused on the fact that they think the election is going to bode well for the Democrats. And that way, if they start planning and playing nicely with Democrats, and maybe they'll maintain their seats, it's not going to work. We need to stand up to the immigration reform and do the legit, realistic bill of what we've done in the past. Why don't you represent the House bill that we actually tried to do just a few months ago? That was actually a very solid, decent bill. And I was in support of that. Then you see this story when it comes to the supporting the Second Amendment, because as we talk about the budget and we talk about regulation and we talk about preserving life with Planned Parenthood, and it's so funny. The progressives, they want to preserve life by not having a school shooting, but they have no problem with funding Planned Parenthood and some of these other programs that do terrible, horrible, atrocious things. And then we try and preserve the innocent life, and then they're all about, it's the never-ending hamster wheel, the circle that we always seem to be spinning on day in and day out. It's quite frustrating. But you see this as they openly begin to admit they want to repeal the Second Amendment, openly repeal gun rights, and be able to start taking firearms away. Credit services shut down payments on all gun purchases. Listen up. If you've tried to purchase a gun recently, this may affect you. Several gun-related businesses were suddenly and without warning, mind you, disrupted in recent weeks, and when Intuit stopped processing credit card payments because sales were gun-related. Oh, yeah. Some of the payments stopped don't even revolve firearms, but simply T-shirts or coffee mugs and gun safety courses, according to some of the small business owners. As a result, the businesses had to scramble to track down customers to get them to pay their bills after Intuit credited back some of the customers' accounts on the purchases. So you go and purchase a firearm, you swipe your credit card, it looks like the transaction's going through, everything's all hunky-dory, you go home with your brand new firearm, or you signed up for a hunter safety course, or you signed up to take a concealed carry course, or you tried to get a permit, or you tried to get a T-shirt of the gun at the gun store that you actually like to go towards, or you purchased a membership to a gun club, or whatever it was. You swipe your credit card, looks like it goes through. A week later, Intuit comes back and says, yeah, no, that's related to firearms. We're not going to accept it. We're going to shut it down. And guess what? The business being out of that money. Then you get the knock at the door. Yeah, you purchased this a week ago, and we need some more payment because your credit services didn't allow it to process. Why? Because they hate firearms and the Second Amendment. How is this okay? How is this not a 100% bold-faced, blatant violation of the Second Amendment of your right to be able to purchase with them putting their, oh, you can purchase it, you just can't use our services. Really? Oh, you can purchase it, you just have to use cash. This is the next argument. I've said this many times before, and you've heard many other people say this as well. But when it comes to arguments like with the Second Amendment, they're going to always try and chip away at different angles. They've tried limiting magazines. They've tried limiting the firearm. They've tried limiting the accessories of the firearm. They've tried limiting the number of bullets you can have, the size of the magazine that you can have. They've tried to put on taxes, just the $1,000 tax in certain states where they just slap on before you even purchase the gun, $1,000. $1,000 fine, tax, and then the purchase of the firearm on top of it, and then the normal sales tax on top of that, to try and disincentivize individuals from wanting to purchase that gun because it's too expensive. Now, they're just going to make it so complicated to where unless you actually use cash, then you're not going to be able to purchase, because the services of you processing a debit card, a credit card, that sort of thing, we're not going to support it, so you're not allowed to buy anything related to firearms in any way, shape, or form, so that way you only have to use cash. Restricting the ability for some individuals to actually purchase that firearm. It's unbelievable the angles that these radio-edited word individuals on the left try to go after your rights. Healthcare. Yeah, you know what? We're all about the wicked, wild, free thinkers, baby. We're all about your right to be able to choose, and I choose the government's healthcare, so that way that's the only option, so that everybody else doesn't have a choice, because that was the choice that I made. Again, making you abide by what I wish when it comes to my rights, because my right is I choose government healthcare as a progressive, and therefore that's going to screw up the market, and therefore the private insurance companies are going to shut down, and the private businesses are going to shut down, so therefore you just must abide by my wishes and get everything that I want, because I'm a spoiled little brat as a progressive. I mean, that's really the option, isn't it? What did Barack Obama say? You can keep your doctor if you want to keep your doctor. You can keep your insurance plan if you want to keep your plan. And then what happened? The government comes in, messes up the market. They can't compete. And then you see all the private small little clinics shut down because they can't afford to stay in business. You see one or two options in a market for health insurance as opposed to 5 or 6. Where's the choice? Where's the freedom? Where's the options? Guns. Yeah, you can buy your gun. You just can't use any of the services to actually do it electronically for a purchase. Say, what? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can have immigration, and you can do whatever you want to with immigration as long as we give amnesty to everybody that's broken the law. What? They always find the sneaky go-arounds. They're not fair players. This is the dirty politics that we talk about. This is the shenanigans that they pull to try and abuse their power and their agenda to get whatever they want. Rather than a rational discussion, rather than a common sense approach, rather than sitting down and finding a happy medium or a happy ground, or at least dialoguing about it, they don't. They're sneaky. They're devious. They're manipulative. And it's really frustrating because we always have to keep our guard up, and as soon as we let our guard down, they end up gaining, and then we have to work twice as hard in order to try and retract what they've done and at least get back to where we were before. It's a never-ending cycle, but that's the war, that's the battle that we've taken up and that we've taken up arms with and that we've accepted because, well, you're listening to this program and that you understand that the issues are extremely important. This happens at the local levels, and it happens at the federal level, and that's what we have to be aware of. 316-721-8255. Got some calls on the line. Let's go right to you, shall we? Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, how are you?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
I hope you're doing great.
Living the dream every day.
Oh, great. Well, I listened to Mark Levin yesterday expounding upon these tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, I already knew this, but tariffs are taxes, and taxes... and they're taxes upon us, we
Sure.
the people of the USA. So raising, Trump imposing these tariffs on these other nations and stuff, it puts the taxes on us. So it's basically like raising our taxes. So if he goes and in one hand he cuts our taxes, but then the other hand, he raises our taxes double by, the omnibus bill and then the tariffs. So exactly how are our taxes being cut?
Well, a little bit. It's when he puts the tariffs on another nation, that means he's taxing the other nation to actually import it in. So the government's receiving more revenue from the other nation as they try and bring the goods into here. So that particular part of it is not a tax on us. What it does do...
That's not how Mark Levin explained it. It says that if we want to buy products from another nation, then we're going to have to pay the tariff.
Right. We pay a little bit as well. I mean, they pay a tariff, we pay a tariff. Hopefully, we hopefully try and balance it out. You're right. I mean, we have to pay a little bit more in order to gain it, which what it does is it really comes down to the biggest part that affects you and I at the local level is when we do something like this, the price of the good goes up because it's more expensive to actually bring into the nation. So the good, whether it's the raw material, which is more expensive for the company to buy that and manufacture their good and create a consumeristic product and then put it in the market for us to be able to buy, or whether it's an actual good that we just put right on the shelf and we buy. Either way, coming into the country is more expensive, so therefore the price of it at the shelf price for the consumer is going to be more expensive, so you're paying more out of pocket both for the good and for the sales tax on that and everything of the sort. The hope is, and the reason that I've been I understand both arguments of this, and I've been going back and forth because I don't like it by any means, and don't get me wrong, I'm not in favor of the tariffs, but I understand why he's doing it. We've been taken advantage of for so long that with these trade deals, the other nations are benefiting more and getting more revenue with the tariffs and with the trade that we've been doing already than we are. And we're sick and tired of being taken of and abused of. So we're going to start standing up for ourselves. And if it's a temporary increase in some of the prices and the tariffs that we have to pay, or the tariffs that are going back and forth with the trading, if we increase these just a little bit, then it's going to, raise the cost for a little bit, but then people are going to respect us a little bit more to where they're going to come back to the table, renegotiate these, and it's not going to last very long.
Well, the way Mark Levin explains it is that that in the long run, it hurts us, taxpayers, the USA taxpayers. It doesn't really hurt the people because other nations, because basically, with all of the way the things have been going, we're still the richest nation in the world.
Sure.
So this is going to make us. So if we have tariffs and stuff, we're going to be make ourselves poor. Like we're going to make ourselves poor.
Well, we are technically the richest nation in the world, but at the same time, we're $23 trillion in debt, and a lot of that is because of the fact that we're not gaining a whole lot of profit on the back end, a lot of these trade deals that we have, and I would rather start shaking up the trade deals in order to, in the long run, get a better trade deal than what we currently have, because as Trump rightly said, is that we've had really poor negotiators for a really long time, we're pretty much selling the milk and giving away the cow right now, and that's not a position that we need to be in. And is it going to hurt us temporarily? Yeah, I think so. But in the long term, as we renegotiate, for example, let's take a look at this. China, as you know, came back and said that they wanted to place a tariff on our goods, meaning that the stuff that we sell to them, that we're going to get less of a revenue from, and that it's going to harm us with us trading with China, especially when it comes to milo and sorghum, like here in the state of Kansas, where we produce 50% of the country's sorghum and milo for the entire nation, which means it's going to drastically hurt us here in the country. Now, we can go one of two ways with this. We can accept it and say, oh, okay, you want to put a tariff on it because you're upset that you're buying hundreds of billions of dollars a day, hundreds of millions of dollars a day from our debt and buying up our debt as bonds sort of thing from your nation. So you're going to start putting tariffs on to compensate for some of that. So we can either go along with it and be happy because that's what the decision you make, or we can say, wait a second, that doesn't benefit us anymore. We're going to walk away from your trade for that, and we're going to go find another nation to make a good trade deal with, and we're going to be better off because we have to start putting the self-interest of the U.S. first in order for us to actually start benefiting. Then, I mean, obviously there's many different aspects to get our budget back on track, but a lot of it is we're losing in these trade deals. We're actually losing revenue from trade deals we have with other nations, and we cannot sustain that much longer.
Well, it doesn't sound like that's the way Mark Levin was explaining it, and it sounds like this is a lose-lose for us, raising these tariffs, because it only comes back on us. It's kind of like, a business.
Sure.
A business that, say they sell products. Well, then you have some kleptomaniacs, some thieves come in and steal something. Well, they pass on the expense, through their insurance and cost to the consumer.
Sure.
So it's ultimately the store, the company, they don't actually end up paying the cost of their loss. It's the consumer, it's the taxpayer that pays the cost of the loss. So this is basically the same thing.
You're right, and we will suffer that way for a little bit when because of these tariffs that are being put on right now. You're right. We will suffer with that. We will pay a little bit more at the consumer level. We will pay more at the raw material level for the manufacturers. We will pay more, and that's going to hurt us, which is why I've not been a fan of them. At the same time, sometimes you have to sacrifice just a little bit in order to get a better deal, which I think is going to be the end game. If we're able to continue on this track, again, doing it in the baby steps, doing it process by process, then we're going to come out better because we're going to show our strength that we're not going to be bullied anymore. We're not going to be taken advantage of anymore. And then we can actually renegotiate and actually come back to the table. So I appreciate it. Now, I did not hear the conversation with Mark Levin, so I'm going to have to listen to that and see exactly the details that he was talking about because I'm hoping that we'd be pretty much on the same level. Not on the same level in that sense, but at the same mindset of the potential of what could come out of this in a positive way. Is he endorsing or supportive of these tariffs by any means? No. And I haven't been either. But at the same time, being the eternal optimist, I see the potential of opportunity later on down the road that we wouldn't have. That door would not be open for us to be better if we have not gone down this road and kind of, put up our guard just a little bit against some of these other nations. Got to take a break, Helen. I appreciate the call very much. It's an interesting conversation, and it's one that is going to be ongoing for a long time. We just got to keep our heads up and keep positive in that sense. But I will take a listen to that and see exactly what he was talking about on that level as well. 5 minutes at the top of the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There is another option as well, by the way, when it comes to the whole tariff deal and the trade negotiations going on. And one thing is that you can always, this is maybe a way to say, you know what? If I don't like the price of the good, the raw material, or the product on the shelf that is imported from somewhere else that's more expensive because of the fact that it's from somewhere else where there's those tariffs going on, then, buying that American product sometimes is the way to go then, too. That way we don't have to worry about that. Now, some of the raw materials may be a little more expensive, so they may all go up, but at the same time, the American product sometimes has value, doesn't it? This is your show. As always, we appreciate the phone calls, the conversations. We'll continue it tomorrow. As usual, this is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak aloud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason, baby. This is The Voice of Reason. Everybody have a great Tuesday.